This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. Welcome to our flower series. In these videos, we will show you how to pipe a buttercream flower, in this case, a camellia, from making your colors, loading your bags, all the way to piping your blossoms. And it's broken down into segments, so if you already know some of the other stuff or are more familiar with cake decorating, you can skip ahead. So our first step is making our colors, and I have just a little color squeezed out onto the lid of a quart container. I have some neon bright pink, violet, lemon yellow, and royal blue. And these are all liquid gel colors, and I like them for coloring this buttercream. And we're just using a simple American style or simple buttercream for these because it's nice and easy to color. And my goal is to make 2 light shades of pink and 1 of a kind of yellow with just a hint of green to it. So I'm just going to start with 2 little specks with my toothpick of that pink and 1 of purple, just because I want them to be nice tones but not completely pure, right? I don't want them to be too like on the nose pink. So I just want them to be nice, soft shades that are going to look beautiful. And I want to do 1 super, super light and 1 just a little bit darker so that I have some depth and some change to the petals. I'm actually going to load these pinks up together in a bag. So I also want to make sure that they look nice next to each other. And that's a beautiful kind of super soft, just barely there shade of pink. It just has a little hint of something from that purple just to take it just a little off. And I'm going to go ahead and make a slightly darker shade now. I just have a couple of ounces in each of these bowls because I'm just doing some practice. Like 6, and then just give it 1 of that purple. We'll see what we've got. So I want it to be like kind of a light to medium shade, just so it'll really stand out against the other color that we made, but also still be pretty soft. Oh, I think that's going to be beautiful. It just has a little bit of, I'll call it like a hint of mauveness because of that purple. So these are nice, 2 nice, soft, what I would call pastel shades, but this one is significantly darker than the other one, so they'll read nicely next to each other. I'm going to pull my last little bowl over. This one has less in it. I'm just using it for centers, so I really don't need a lot. And I'm going to go with just 2 tiny little specks of that lemon yellow. And then just a very hint of a point of that blue, because I want it to be yellow, and hopefully this works out and it's not too much blue, with just kind of a hint of that blue. So you think, is it yellow? Is it green? And it's kind of a nice little in-between color. And I think that's going to be beautiful. Maybe just a touch more of the yellow just to pull it back a little towards the yellow in terms of its overall feel. It's going to be great. And these are looking fantastic. And you can see, I always like to hold my colors up next to each other too. Just make sure they all look nice together as well. Because sometimes what we have planned in our head doesn't look so great. And this is a great time to tweak things before you load them into your bags. And that is what we're going to do next. We are getting our bags ready, and I have my green already loaded into a 12-inch bag, and I've got a 3-tip just down already in there, and that's going to be for our centers, so very easy to load up. The other one is a 123 tip. This is a larger petal tip, and you can see it's got that curve to it, and we're going to use this to make those petals. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of check that length, give this a little cut. Then you want to get this down inside the bag and just double check and make sure you've cut enough. I haven't yet. I always err on the side of caution to be safe at first because you don't want to cut too far back. So let's just get that through there. And you can see now I've got this cut and it's far enough back that it's not blocking that opening at all, but it's not too far back that we risk rocketing our tip out when we're squeezing. So that's going to be perfect. And we're going to stripe this bag. So I wanted to make sure that I show you this one. And basically you just have to pick. Do you want the darker pink towards the fatter end of the tip? or do you want the lighter pink down there? And you can do it either way. I kind of like the darker towards the fatter end, so it looks like the petals are getting lighter as they go out, and that's what I'm going to go for, but you can also reverse it. That's really up to you. First thing we're going to do is fold that bag over. You can see I've got it folded over about halfway. This gives us a nice lip there that you can slide your hand up under, and you can see I can also see where my tip is, so I can see where that skinny end is, because that's where I want my lighter buttercream to be, and where my fat end is, where I want the darker to be. So I'm just going to get that ready there, and I've got my buttercream, and I've got these little spatulas for mixing. They're great. If you want a little more precise control, you can also use your straight spatulas, right? These are really great for mixing colors and also for loading bags when you want to do striping, because it gives you a little more precision, and it's a nice long utensil to really get it down in there. So I'm just going to slip my hand up in there, and I've got my fat end down on that side. So I'm just going to place it, you can see, against the side of that bag and pull it up, and I get a nice clean application down one side. It's important to note that I usually don't go all the way to the tip, because that means if you get a little off in your application, you can always twist the tip around and adjust it before you push that frosting forward and force it into that tip. I'm just going to go ahead then and do the same thing on the opposite side with the lighter buttercream. And since I've already got that dark down in there, I'm just going to use my spatula and really get a whole bunch of this down in there. It's just easy, slide my hand right in there again. And I feel like sometimes people get afraid of this. You don't really need to be. Just go ahead. It doesn't matter if the colors mix and blend a little bit. You just want to make sure you've got enough in there so you have enough to squeeze. I'm going to go ahead and load the rest of this up. So I want my flowers to be heavier on the lighter color. So you can see now, when I flip it up, I've got two nice little lines of color. I can squeeze this forward, and that'll force it into the tip. So just make sure you've got your tip where you want it to be, and then push it forward. And what you'll get is a nice stream of frosting. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but you'll see that color, the darker is starting to come out there. It's perfect. And if it's not exactly the way you want it to be, you can always twist the tip, adjust it a little bit so that you get your desired effect. Now let's talk about the techniques we're going to use with these tips. The first thing I'm going to cover are the spikes that we're going to use for the center of our flower. So basically what we're going to do is pipe a dot, and instead of finishing it like a beautiful, clean, perfect dot like we normally would, we're actually going to keep squeezing as we pull the bag up to pull a nice little spike of frosting. And these little hairy spikes don't have to be perfect. They're actually really good practice if you're looking to practice some control, and they make fun, wild little centers, and we're going to group them together tightly to give them not only some stability, but give them that look of a flower with a lot of pistils or stamens in there. So we're just going to practice a few on our tray first so we're familiar with it before we get started with our flowers. So I've got my yellow-green color down in my bag with my 3-tip. It's coming out nicely. I'm just going to go ahead and just hover right above the surface that I'm piping on. Give that frosting a squeeze, really let it connect, and then pull up as you're still squeezing. And then we're just going to go tightly around that just to really give us the look of some nice little stamens. And you can keep going, and when you do them really close to that, it'll give them some stability. You'll just have those little kind of hairy fronds at the top that'll kind of fall over and give you some natural motion. So that's perfect. If you need some more practice, go ahead, pipe a couple little round groupings and make some little centers for yourself on paper. It's really easy to do. You can even take that buttercream up and load it right back into your bag when you're actually ready to pipe some flowers. For our petals, we are going to use our 123 tip. And you can see it's that beautiful curved shape opening. It's fatter at that base, and that's going to be the center of our petals, and that's the important part. And the skinnier end is going to be the outside. So you want to make sure you're holding it correctly while you're pulling those petals. And there's a few things to keep in mind. To start with, in relation to the surface we're piping on, we're going to be using a cupcake, but whether it's a cake or your flower nail, you want the vast majority of the body of that tip to be kind of flat on that surface, and just that very, very skinny end to be kind of up off of it. And we're going to pull it in a nice arc motion to make our petals. And then as we're getting towards the center of the flower and we're doing successive layers of petals, you'll see we'll pipe them kind of in rounds. We're actually going to take that outside edge and go from almost flat against the surface to almost straight up and down. And that's going to give you this look of a nice open flower. So it's important not only how you hold the bag, right? Make sure to start with, we're going to be almost flat against the surface. You can see my hand is actually touching the tray, right? And as we go, all we're going to do is change the orientation of that tip, right? So that outside edge is going to go from almost touching to almost straight up and down. But my actual hand that I'm piping with is going to remain relatively stationary. So for the actual motion we're going to use, we're just going to do a nice, beautiful arc, right? So just a nice kind of curve shape. And you can see with it flat against the surface, it's just, there we go, the nice little edge that sticks up to begin with. And as we build the flower, the petals are going to lift up more, they're going to separate more, and we're going to make a really beautiful looking camellia. So we're going to start working on our camellias and piping some on cupcakes. They're nice big flowers, so it's actually pretty easy to pipe these on cupcakes as practice. And I've got some instructions off to the side. As you can see, we're going to start with piping a nice little mound in the center. It's not going to be too big. It's just enough to have our petals attached to as we start to move towards the center, and to pipe our little center spikes on. We're going to do the outside petals first, the ones that are going to be flat against the surface, and we're just going to pull each one kind of from underneath the petal before, so they kind of nest together, and it's also going to help them give just a little bit of support. We're going to rock that outside edge of the tip, the skinny end, up a little bit for each round of petals we do. So we'll go all the way around the cupcake, reposition that tip a little bit, do another round, and go towards till we have a nice little center. And we're going to do those little center spikes for our stamens last. So I'm going to start with my bag, my 123 with the pink and my cupcake. And I'm just going to give myself a little bit of something there. And then I'm going to turn it over so I can just pipe a nice little round mound there. So you can see it's not that big, it's not that tall, it's just a little something for everything to attach to and help it all come together. So once we have our mound in the center, we're going to position our bag like we've kind of practiced on our tray. I've got the fat end towards the center, the skinny end is towards the outside of my cupcake, and you can see the vast majority of that tip is going to be laying flat against the surface. And I'm just going to pull those nice arc shapes. And you can see that's what's going to give me those beautiful petals. And then you can go underneath the one before and pipe another one. And they don't have to perfectly meet up to that center. It's okay if there's some gaps, because we're going to be putting more petals on and it's going to cover that up. So don't worry about that. And I find it usually takes about 4 or 5 to get all the way around that first time. And that last one's going to overlap a little bit. And as you overlap, pull that tip just a little bit up on the outside so you can see it gives you that nice little curve. So that finishes our first round. Just going to clean the end of my tip. Right? And instead of being flat against the surface, I'm just going to rotate that tip a little bit so that when I do this next round, they're going to be just a little bit shorter and a little closer to being vertical. And that's going to give these petals a nice cupped look and make them stand up. And you can see it's covering up those gaps from before, and I'm just nesting each one underneath the previous petal. Now, I usually like to do 3 layers of petals on mine, and this last one, I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it so it's almost upright. And I'm going to go and just do about 3, maybe 4 if you need to, kind of depends on the spacing. These always end up being a little organic, and just drawing that arc shape like so to make a nice little gap there in the center. And you can see it's met up with that center that we piped earlier, that little mound, and it gives us that perfect spot then to nest in our little spikes. So I'm just gonna take my yellow and pull a center one and then go all the way around the outside. And you can pull them so that they're kind of sunken down in there, or you can pull them so that they're nice and long and kind of hanging over the edges of those petals. But that gives us a beautiful buttercream camellia. And camellias are one of those things, they have a lot of natural variety, a lot of different styles of petals. They come in a vast variety of colors with different types of centers. So once you kind of have a hang of how to make the petals, you can make your own nice natural variations for these. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.